Hi everybody, so welcome back to another video. Kim here with Native Lady Book Warrior. I actually got some really awesome mail. I got this a while ago. I know some of the questions that people are always asking me is like, where the heck do you get your earrings? So I actually got these as a gift from someone who won my IndigAthon giveaway prize last year. They wrote me a note. As you can see, this is pretty awesome. So it says, I asked my cousin Debbie to make you a pair of earrings. I asked her to make these shawl earrings using the colors in the print by Dene Mahapi Arts, which is another Indigenous artist you need to follow, as inspiration. I hope you enjoy them. So these are really cool. As you can see, it's like a woman facing away. She has a little ponytail, Native woman, and she's wearing a shawl. So like this is the back of her shawl, and this is her shawl strings or the strands hanging down. So these are so beautiful. Thank you so much, Margot. I appreciate it. So if you want some made like these, here is a card. You can look them up and maybe ask them to make you the same kind or a different color. So yeah, definitely check them out. So what are we here for today anyway? No, just kidding. So I just wanted to make that really quick announcement. Today, I'm actually going to be sharing with all of you Indigenous authored reads that are spooky, haunting, and horror. So I'm going to be showing you 5 books. I mean, obviously there are tons of Indigenous horror out there, or even speculative fiction, dystopian. These are horror and haunting reads to me. So I'm going to be showing 5 of them to you. So let's get started. Okay, so usually when people do like top 5 horror reads, they say, oh, these are in no particular order, but I actually did mine in a specific order. So it's not like there's a mile between each of these books. It was really hard for me to put these in order of favorites that I enjoyed. So I'm going to start with the 5th book that is Indigenous authored, that it was a haunting read for me. And that book is actually a YA book, and it's The Mayor of Thieves by Cherie Demoline. So I know a lot of people are like, wait, that's not horror, but it was very haunting. Like, it was horrifying in a way for especially the Indigenous community. And I could see myself going through this entire book, reading all of it, and I was just like, it was horrifying because I could actually see this happening. I could see how oppression is playing out in this book. But basically, this book is about a young Native boy named Frenchie. He is in the future, sometime in the future, in a world that has been devastated by climate change. And in that world, Indigenous people are being hunted down for their bone marrow because the entire human population has this inability to dream. So within that world, the only ones who are able to dream are Indigenous people. So they're hunting them down like animals to basically take out their bone marrow so they could find the cure, or maybe they already have the cure to repair the inability for humanity to dream. So basically, Indigenous people are just treated as this horrifying commodity. And Frenchie has found a group of people to lean on during that time. And it's really cool because it's told from more than one perspective. And you see these Indigenous youth traveling together. They have suffered trauma, and they go throughout that in this book, and it's incredible. So one of the things I wanted to share on with this book is it does have a sequel. And yes, yours truly finally got an arc. So I'm going to go get it. I'll be right back. This is my number 5 of haunting Indigenous reads that you all should check out. It's definitely awesome. Cherie Demoline is an Indigenous author who resides in Canada, but her sequel for this book is actually out. And I have an arc right here, a reviewer's copy, which is called Hunting by the Stars. And so far, some of the Indigenous bookstagrammers that I was talking to about this book, they stated that it jumps right off where this ended. So I was like, yeah, I was celebrating, because even though I do love books that maybe it's a generation later or two, 3, whatever generations later, I do enjoy reads like that. But I was just so absorbed and am committed, emotionally committed people to these characters. So I'm so happy to be reading this book, and I'm thinking of reading this book for November for an IndigAthon, but we'll see. Okay, so yes, number 5, Hunting Read by an Indigenous author. So, all right, let's go to number 4. The fourth Indigenous author horror read that I loved so much, and yes, I read this last year, is none other by Indigenous author Stephen Graham Jones. Yes, people, I mean, if you're an Indigenous reviewer, it's highly unlikely you haven't read Stephen Graham Jones or even a horror reader. So I highly suggest you'll pick up some of Stephen Graham Jones' work. Is incredible. And that book, that number 4 book in that Indigenous horror haunting spooky novel that I love so much is Mongrels by Stephen Graham Jones. So this book was incredibly intelligent. It's actually told from a perspective of, I believe, an Indigenous young man or young boy. And the way it reads like a diary. When I was like halfway through this book, I realized like, wow, the narrator, we don't even know his name. Basically, this young boy, he lives in a family, is actually able to transition in physically into werewolves. And so what they're trying to do is they're trying to get him ready to be a werewolf. But what the weird twist in it is that he might not be. He might not be a werewolf. So he's learning all this information from his aunt and his uncle on things to avoid, and just learning about a whole life that he might not have. And it's really incredible. There's a lot of parallels with Indigenous identity, and especially just the idea of him being mixed blood. And so I saw a lot of really cool parallels there. I did review this book. It's incredible. And I feel like the character development is just so amazing. And also I do feel like I'm in the head of this young boy, and just seeing things from his perspective, and from different times in his life to where he's young. And then you can see the voice changing and developing and becoming a little bit more mature as he gets older. And it's really incredible. So yeah, number 4, I suggest y'all check this out. It's pretty awesome. So the number 3 Indigenous authored haunting horror spooky read that I love. I don't know how many times I have read this book before already, because it's such a short, fast read, and it's always popping up in a lot of like Indigenous book groups and book clubs. I've read this more than once, and it's such an incredible book. The number 3 book that I'm about to show you is Moon of the Crusted Snow by Wabgishig Rice. And Wabgishig Rice is from the Wasauksing First Nation up in Canada. And wow, this is the ultimate apocalyptic, I mean, along with Marrow Thieves, dystopian, Indigenous, cultured, horrifying, a spooky, haunting novel that I love. And it's so interesting and multi-layered in terms of culture and suspense, and you can feel and just emotionally feel the events that are unfolding within this book. This book is about this Indigenous community, a fictional Indigenous community up in Canada, and they lose power, and they lose power over a couple 3 days. The days are increasing of not having power, not hearing from anyone. And then all of a sudden they say, whoa, we're on our own. Something happened in the world. We don't know what, but we need to survive here. And it's like in the middle or almost about to be winter. What I love most about this book is just that very, very strong, resilient cultural voice that Rice gives us, alongside with the intense moments of somebody coming into the community uninvited, and how that stirs and increases the tension and conflict and challenges and issues, especially issues with this colonial person, this white person basically, that infiltrates into the community uninvited, but very much welcome in the community, because that's how the Indigenous communities are. We welcome everybody, especially those who are seeking help and who are in trouble. I really enjoyed Rice's writing. I mean, it's a little bit sparse, but I think one of the voices in terms of cultural strength, and then connecting that to a reality we are still very much striving for, and trying to sustain those cultural, traditional, and that heritage that is so important to us, because one day we may need it to survive into this apocalyptic world. And another thing, I think, content warning that I wanted to put out there is that if you had serious tension and stressful vibes during the COVID crisis, especially when there was no tissue and just supplies were running out, I would just be mindful about reading this book. I mean, there's a lot more content warnings in terms of this book, but I loved everything. It's just such an incredible read, and I always recommend this book. So yes, number 3, right? Yeah, my top 3. So I went. Wait, am I going backwards? And this is number 3, Moon of the Crescent Snow by Waukesha Rice. So yep, check it out, people. So this next book, I was going back and forth between these ones. So I want to say that both of these books are ranked number 1. Or wait, well, I can't even count. 2 of these books, which I picked, are ranked number 1. And it was just really hard for me to pick which one I loved more. And actually, one of these books is a novella, and the other one is a full-fledged novel. And they are both by the same Indigenous horror master, Stephen Graham Jones. And the book that I chose is obviously Mapping the Interior. Oh, this book, it left me speechless when I finished it, and it's only like 100 pages. And after I read it, I was like having all sorts of conflicted feelings. Once I finished it, I read it all over again. I was like, did I read this right? Am I really picturing the conclusion of this book? Is that, I don't want to say this book ends on a cliffhanger, because it really doesn't. In my opinion, it doesn't. So basically this book is about a young Native boy who loses his dad very early. So his little brother and his mom are just trying to make it day to day. They're just one of those families, one of those Indigenous families that are trying to make it to the next week, and they're struggling financially. This little boy, all of a sudden, one day, he just sees his dead dad, his ghost dad, walking through the house, and you're like, what the heck? I don't want to go any more than that, because this book is so short. It is dense. This book is heavy. It is so heavy. The gravitational pull on this book to your brain is gonna crush it. The cultural elements in terms of social interaction, family in this book is also very, very important to me. And I found that this book spoke to me in ways that, well, definitely there are events in this book that I have gone through myself, but I think reliving them in my head really was heavy. And I feel like Stephen Graham Jones writing in this book he's like slowly like creeping up on you. Not something that's like gonna like slasher you, or that's gonna like coming, but there's definitely kind of like this evil intent there. And when you discover like what it is and what is happening, all this thing already has its claws wrapped all around you, and you're stuck, and you just basically have to read the rest of this book, and you're just like, oh my gosh. But yeah, this book, I don't want to explain too much about it because it's such a short book. Stephen Graham Jones, really, I think after I read this, I was just like, wow, I got to get my hands on every Stephen Graham Jones book out there. So yes, so number 1, tied for number 1, Mapping the Interior by Stephen Graham Jones. Okay, the last book I'm going to talk about, I actually don't have here with me. I loaned it out, and yes, people, I loaned out this book, and I'm waiting for it to be returned to me. But I don't know, I might just let them keep it, and then me just buy another brand spanking new Stephen Graham Jones book. So I'm sure you all probably already guessed. If you haven't by now, if you haven't been watching my channel and you don't know who the heck I am, you probably don't know. But if you have, you already know what this last book is. So I'm going to put it right here. Yes, tied for number 1 book of the Indigenous authored spooky horror haunting read that I've ever read, and is Stephen Graham Jones' The Only Good Indians, or what we would call Togi. So this book, wow. I was given an arc of this book, and I honestly, I put it off for a little bit because I was like, you know what, I want to have, you know, those spooky feels when I read this book. And when I did, wow, was I surprised. So I mean, this book is definitely one of those horror slash gory books, but there's also so much complexity within this book. It talks there, and it's not Stephen Graham Jones, the author, splashing it in your face and telling you, yeah, these are all the injustices that are happening in indigenous countries and nations. No. He cleverly creates these characters and puts us in their shoes and gives us the real reality, not this reality that we're looking at through this very analytical lens, but he puts us in the shoes of the realities of indigenous peoples and the just injustices that we suffer. But he also does a lot of character development in terms of friendship, family. So basically, this book is about these Blackfeet men who are friends. They go hunting one winter, and it's at the end of hunting season. They don't make the deadline for hunting season, and they end up hunting anyway, and they hunt on these illegal hunting grounds that they are not supposed to, that aren't reserved for them, and they end up making a serious trespass on nature. So when they go hunting, they do something horrible, and they know it's horrible. I mean, not at the time, not while they're going to do it, but after they see the aftermath of the events that they have done, the conclusion of that event, they realize, holy crap, what do we do? Years later, right? The nature of what they trespass against eventually comes back in this horrific revenge, like, I want nothing but blood, I don't want a sorry type, dramatic, awesome, amazing style, horrific style, a slasher style, a gory style. And it comes back for all of them. And it's such an amazing story. I cannot express enough how much you all should be reading this book. It is incredible. Was kind of like a whiplash and a roller coaster ride because it switches points of view. It goes from first person to, or is it first person? I don't know, but it switches like from third to second to whatever. And it's so good. And Stephen Graham Jones, I think he does it deliberately because I think he's trying to create this environment where it's confusing and it's horrific and you're just like, what the heck? Like fear is just is keeping you hostage in this book, and it's pretty incredible. So I want to say thank you so much for sticking around. So these are the books that I recommend, 1, 2, 3, 4, and also Togi right here that you all should check out that I really enjoy. Indigenous authored spooky horror hunting reads. Other books that I have not read yet, I also suggest you check them out. Well, actually, I read one of these, but they didn't make my top 5, and that is Night of the Mannequins by Stephen Graham Jones. A really awesome book, really quick read. It's a novella, but it didn't make my top 5, but I also very much enjoyed this book. Another book you should check out by a new upcoming Indigenous horror author is Shane Hawk, and that is Anoka. So I actually saw on Twitter the other day, he put this up. I think he ordered 30 or 100. I don't remember how many more copies, but it's only $10 a copy. I suggest y'all check this out. So here is like a little bit of description and of what this book is about. But Anoka, yeah, definitely check this out. And of course, one book that I cannot wait to review that I got a reviewer's copy of is My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones. This just recently got released this year. I cannot wait to read this. Have this like, oops, have this cool little VCR cover for it. And I got some really cool postcards that I use for book markers and stuff like that. So look out for the next video. I'm actually going to be recommending some Indigenous authored horror, spooky, haunting reads that I have not read yet, but I really do want to read. Well, thank you so much. I hope you guys are well. I hope you are safe, and I shall see you all later. So I'll talk to you soon. Bye.